Hello again. I begin this video with the single biggest mystery of the Animorphs television series, which it took me to the last 3 episodes to discover and start to wonder about. Why was Visser 3 recast in Season 2? What was the point? Did they fire Eugene Lipinski? Did he leave for some reason? Did someone think he wasn't working? Because he was working really well, to me anyway. And I'm obviously not in charge of any Animorphs projects, but it seemed. And then the new character, I don't know the new actor's name, is Tom Barnett. I have his IMDb page open, so I could remember that. I don't care to remember his new character name, because the whole point is that Visser Three's human name is Victor Trent, which is kind of like Visser Three. Trent meaning three in its way. In different languages, Trent is kind of a root of three. Trenta is, I think, Italian. So that's just, it confused me. And that is another reason why I would want to read that tell-all book. I'm probably the only person in the world who wants to read the tell-all book about the Nickelodeon Animorphs show. There's just so much that's so intriguing that I want to see. I don't expect to read any drama. I just think it would be very interesting and weird and all that. So that's the biggest mystery. Didn't really matter that he only had a few episodes. I didn't find him... he didn't have as long to establish himself as Eugene Lipinski did, but I didn't find him nearly as menacing or villainous. I thought they had a great thing, and I thought he was one of the best things about the show. And for some reason, and maybe one day I'll get to meet him and ask him. I don't know. Somebody, if you know, I looked around the internet to try to find out. If you know, please comment with that information, and I will then try to verify whatever you tell me. So, last 3 episodes, 24, 25, and 26. Changes, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Ostensibly not based on the books, but for instance, I will hold up one book in just a moment. Pieces are taken from... Well, not necessarily taken, because as it goes through, I'll say this is kind of like what happened here. The books weren't always published, but... this one was, and it's one of Cassie's finer books, and it's not the whole thing, but the Changes Part 1 starts with Marco and Jake in a museum looking at an artifact that is supposedly an alien technology. So way to go for this museum getting their hands on that, because in this book the whole point is that it's in Catherine Applegate's version of Area 51, and they have to sneak in as horses. And then it turns out, I guess a spoiler warning for this book and Changes Part 1 on the TV show, that it's an Andalite toilet. And it kind of highlights something that we as Animorphs fans will have to expect in the movies. It's not going to be one movie per book. They're not going to make 64 or however many 60-plus movies based on these books. They're going to take elements from different books and decorate, probably, I think a safe bet is that, and I just happen to have them behind me, the first movie will probably be mainly a combination of books 1, 4, and 7, which are among the first 10 numbered books. They are probably the most crucial as far as establishing the world and the story. Invasion, finding Axe, meeting the Ellimist. But they'll hang like that. That'll be the tree, and then they will hang decorations from, for instance, this. It might just be a passing reference to an Andalite toilet or something like that. So I liked that element. I liked that they included that. But we don't need the whole story, even though Cassie does some great work as a horse in this story. She uses this is a great demonstration of why she's the most qualified Animorph. She knows how to use the animals to the best, to the best of, well, most effectively. But she can demonstrate that power like she does. She demonstrates it in the message as well, and in most of the books. She's the best morpher. But so that was an interesting thing for that reason. There are, of course, security cameras in the museum where they are sneaking in to take pictures of the Andalite toilet, and they are not at all concerned about the security cameras. They are not concerned about their faces being seen. They are not concerned about the cameras seeing them morphing. I am convinced, therefore, that security cameras don't work in this world. They morph, I guess, on their way out. Jake morphs into a dog, and Marco morphs into a duck. And Marco rides Jake out, and then in a later callback, maybe later in this episode, then it's reversed. Marco is the dog, and Jake, or somebody, is a rat riding on Marco on the way out. And I think that small animals riding on big animals is something that the movies definitely need. It's funny. It makes sense because they are animals with the minds of humans, and audiences will love it, as is demonstrated by the rapid dissemination of pictures, for instance, of a chipmunk riding on some kind of bird. I forget which bird, but it's a chipmunk riding on a bird. Audiences will love it, so that they should definitely do it. Let's see. There's an animal rights plot line in this book, and I know that Cassie is animal rights in general. I don't know that there's a specific animal rights plot line in any of the books, like there is in this episode specifically. I think they get a little bit into it in, I think it's number 28, Axe morphs into a cow on the cover. I forget the title of that one. Did I pull it up? Is it? Nope, that's that one, and that's that one. But I think that one, that like when they're going to the slaughterhouse, there's some discussion. They morph chimpanzees first to try to get into animal experimentation place. So maybe that's something to do with it. It's a different. That's not what the main plot is about. It's to do with the cows. I think it's similar to the one with the sharks, where they're trying to. I should have better prepared for that. But anyway, I think I'm remembering the animal rights plot line from this episode. Rachel finally morphs into a bear in this episode, which is great. Animal rights freedom fighters is the name of the animal rights group that ends up doing the demonstrating that Cassie and Jake are ostensibly there to do. They attend the makeup company's big event, and they're going to disrupt it, but then it gets disrupted by the animal rights freedom fighters, which is just a lazy name for a fake animal rights group. Yeah, that's so. And then Marco and Rachel just happen to turn on the TV at the right time, and they see it reported. They see Cassie's in the audience, and then they guess that Jake is the little monkey in a cage on the stage. And then they go and rescue them, which is when Marco is a dog, and he saves the head of the makeup company from getting hit by a car. And then he runs off and he demorphs, and he gets caught on film, finally, not by a security camera, but by a nerd with a handheld camera. And more on Harold later. Just a few more things to note about this one. I just want, if anyone knows why Rachel had curlers in her hair in part of the episode, because then she took the curlers out and her hair was still its standard, just straight hair. I don't know much about curlers. I don't need them. So that was just confusing. And these 3 episodes, the morphing looks great. It's a shame. The morphing was getting better looking better in these later episodes, and then they stopped the show. Um, but this is the beginning of Tobias's side quest with what I call the Cult of Tobias, even though it's not actually have anything to do with him. Um, but I know where they're going. I could have brought that book over. That book probably wasn't published at the time, or maybe it was. But it leads up to him finding out that Alfangor is his father, using almost the same words that Darth Vader uses with Luke Skywalker. I'm just spilling all the secrets of the science fiction classics today. But it keeps him away from the rest of the group, and they probably won't do this with the movies. I hope they don't do it with the movies, because their group dynamic is so great. They really are a superhero team in the X-Men mold. They all have their different talents, and they're all needed, and they all blend together well. So so there's that. Visser Three acquires his new human morph by touching the guy's suit, so they can morph clothes, and they can acquire DNA by touching clothes. I'm pretty sure that when Axe acquires the 4 of them that he uses to mix and create his own Paulo Costanzo self, he touches their faces or their hands. But Visser 3 is an older, more powerful Andalite Yeerk, and he can just touch the guy's suit and absorb his DNA. So Harold, I thought that this episode, and probably this is what would happen if the Animorphs show were being made today, not that this episode would happen, because this doesn't happen in the books, I don't think. The caught on video plotline in the books is in number 40, The Other, and it's an Andalite who's not Alfangor, who crashed, two Andalites from Alfangor's dome ship who crashed to Earth and have been in hiding. One of them is sick with a genetic disease, and the other is a Vekol. He can't morph, and therefore can't. His tail was cut off, or I don't know. I don't remember exactly if his tail was cut off, or maybe I can look quickly at the thing here. The Andalite. All right, I'm not going to try to do that because it's not compelling to watch on video. But the Andalite is missing half his tail, and if it is a wound, the Andalite also can't morph and then reassemble his body and get the tail back. So it's a great book. Science fiction is always, not always, but the best science fiction is used to go over social issues that we humans on Earth in the real world have to deal with, and it's a great one about the rights of differently abled people and how they are perceived. But the disabled, the tailless Andalite is caught on video and referred to as a blue deer when it's broadcast on TV. So it's not Marco being caught morphing, and I don't think that happens in the books. But it happens with Harold, and I thought that this episode should have started with Harold narrating, saying, "My name is Harold," and then just going from his perspective, because it did go from his perspective for a good portion, and then he crosses paths with Rachel, and then we follow her as she reports what she found out from Harold. But yeah, I thought that it should have been narrated from, like, I'm about to have the greatest moment of my life. I got this thing on video. I'm going to make money with it by sending it into TV. I didn't make any copies of the video, so I hope I get it back. And of course, the video would have gone right up on social media, whether Snapchat or Instagram or YouTube today, and it would have gone viral, and that's how he would have gotten fame, but it would have been out there much quicker. So it's a good thing that this was 1999 for the Animorphs' sake. Yes, Harold, classic-looking nerd, seems to sleep in a nerd basement with nerd stuff all up on the wall. It's an awkward scene, and you feel bad for both him and Rachel, but it was great acting on Rachel's part when she's blowing him off, when he keeps trying to ask her out and she keeps blowing him off. And she tells him she's a vegetarian in that part, and later on when he invites her for, I guess, a burger again, and she shouts at him, "I'm a vegetarian." And I don't know if that's just more of her blowing him off because he keeps offering a hamburger, so "I'm a vegetarian" is a, oh, well, this isn't going to work because I'm a vegetarian. But there is that earlier episode where the science teacher, or whatever he was, the one who escapes his yerk, eats a grasshopper, and Rachel says that could have been one of us. I wonder if Rachel actually is a vegetarian. I don't know if that happens in the books, if that's part of her arc in the books, but it's an interesting theme that comes up in Animorphs. If your friends can turn into animals, does that change the way you eat animals? It would make more sense with Cassie. I wonder if Cassie is. I have to reread these books. I only just reread them a couple of years ago, finished rereading them a couple of years ago, and I want to go back, take better notes. Let's see, so Jake and Marco go to retrieve the tape, and and we explore the nerd basement, and Marco he's got the tape in his arms, or a tape in his arms, and they assume it's the tape. They go over, Marco disrupts his sleep, and he says Klingons in his sleep, and so then Marco imitates Mr. Scott and manipulates the sleeping Harold into giving him the tape by being Mr. Scott from Star Trek. And I realized during this scene that the show is being kind of mean to the book's core fan base. I don't know for sure if the book's core fan base was all mostly Harold-type people, but I'm pretty sure, because that's the core fan base of a lot of similar things, and science fiction in general, and it just seemed like unnecessarily mean to the Harold type of person who the show should have been trying to appeal to in the first place, but they were trying to appeal probably to other types of kids. So that left kind of a bad taste. Harold he's not really a villain because he's just an excited geek who saw this really cool thing and wants to share it with the world, and also wants to make some money from it, as he should, for having discovered this really cool thing, and he's kind of treated like a villain, or at least something to laugh at and ridicule. And again, that's the core fan base of the books, I'm pretty sure, is that type. Obviously not walking jokes like Harold was, but, you know, nerds. So let's see. Rachel and Jake end up going to the TV studio, and they watch a guy get jerked because then Visser Three walks in. He's got the tape. It's not Eugene Lipinski Visser Three, but it's still Visser Three for some reason. And for a second, it looks like he's got the tape, and so he must have seen the tape. But it turns out it's just a dumb sitcom that the Yeerks want to use to hypnotize people who are watching TV so that they can put Yeerks in their heads. And I don't know how that was supposed to work, because presumably people are sitting in their living rooms watching TVs, and maybe there's a controller planted in each household, and the controller's going to make sure they watch the show, and then the controller will then put the Yeerks in the heads. But unless there's a Yeerk controller in each household already to put the Yeerks in the heads of the hypnotized people, I don't see how the plan works. But the plan is thwarted anyway, because the subplot, which is kind of based on Axe's arc in Book 5, when he wants to get back to the Andalite homeworld. In that book, he wants to wrangle a Yeerk ship so that he can then fly it to the Andalite homeworld. In this episode, he's building a spaceship, and when he tries to take off, he blows out power to the whole town, and therefore the tape is never broadcast. The episode is never broadcast. The bad sitcom, nor is Harold's tape of Marco morphing. So, yes. And then, not really much to say. Tobias is tracking down these people who are spray painting hawks all around. Oh, and all this time also there's planning for the school dance. So, which comes to fruition in Changes Part 3, which has Rachel all this while has been playing matchmaker, which is more great acting from Rachel. These are good 3 episodes for Rachel, And then even though it's kind of hard to believe that at the dance, when we enter the dance and Rachel's kind of against the wall, and we know she's disappointed because Tobias isn't there. He said he wouldn't be there. But Rachel as a wallflower didn't work because she wasn't moody and surly enough. But also, I just feel like even without Tobias, she would have, being the popular girl that she is, she would have been surrounded by a circle of friends. But at the same time, great performance from Rachel. She's probably the acting highlight in these 3 episodes because Visser Three changed. So yes, and Cassie's really cute in her awkward teen romance thing with Jake when she's saying, "Well, I have this suit for my grandfather, and you and him were the same size, and even though we're not together, we're not dating, but we can go to the dance together, and you can wear it." And she's just adorable, and it's the romance is not the main part of Animorphs, but anything that works well looks good and is pleasant for the viewer, whether it's from the books or not, and whether it's them morphing or not. So let's see. The cult of Tobias turns out to be a bunch of ex-controllers in a loft, one of whom, apparently on her way out, she stole a bunch of Yeerk technology, and she's been figuring it out. And she was a very interesting character that even though this plot line doesn't entirely make sense at this point in the Animorphs show timeline, that's a character that, of all the new characters introduced in the TV show, that's a character I would have liked to spend more time with. She has the disc spinner, which is confusing because she would have had to steal that from the Animorphs, because the Animorphs steal it back from the Yeerks, unless, well, the journey of the MacGuffin disc seems to be, as of, I think, Face Off Part 2, the last episode of Season 1, Chapman, for some reason, puts it out on the window ledge, perhaps to keep it from Tom so that Tom can't get promoted or something. Tobias flies at it. He's still a hawk. He grabs it with his talons and then falls to the ground and can suddenly morph again. But then he can morph into a human. He's got pockets. He puts the disc in his pockets because they still have the disc, which now has markings on it that I don't think it had in the earlier episodes. So the Animorphs have the disc, and they have the disc spinner holder thing. So how did the woman who stole the Yeerk tech get the disc spinner thing? Because Tobias only brings them the disc, and she's got the spinner. So but she's a cool character though. Axe, again, movies try not to make Axe too big of a joke, but his awkward human walk is great because one of the recurring themes of Axe in Human Morph is it's hard to walk on 2 legs, so I enjoy that. Tobias, I won't say exactly how it is in the book, but when he finds out that Elfangor is his father in book 23, I think that's the proposal. No, that's not the proposal. That's the pretender. I think that's the pretender. It's far superior scene, far superior thing, but Animorphs wanted to imitate Star Wars here, and they did, and that's fine, whatever. And then it's funny, Jake has a line when they realize the Yeerk plot having to do with the dance is that the dance floor will collapse into the Yeerk pool. All the kids will fall into the Yeerk pool and be infested with Yeerks, and so they have to get the kids out of, or off the dance floor, out of the gym, whatever it is. And I think probably it's Rachel who says, "So will we turn into big scary things?" And Jake says, "No, I think this calls for something more subtle than a lion and a bear and a tiger." And it's just a funny. I mean, it makes sense because ultimately they go with skunks stinking up the place, and getting people out that way, which is better than scaring children. But the line in my head translated to, we don't have the budget for the flashy, cool animal thing that everyone's watching the show expecting to see. Let's do something more subtle that we can afford to do. So that was just funny in my head, the translating in my head. someone steps on the disc during the raid of the ex-controller meeting, and as Tobias is flying away. So finally, the very last episode, the disc is out of the picture, no longer a problem, no longer a distraction, which was kind of cathartic for me. I did not like the disc. Let's see, and Tobias gets the last words in the episode, which is nice. So yeah, that's... Oh, and one more thing. In the final scene before Tobias gets his last words, they're all complaining about, we didn't get to have our dance, we're teenagers, we want to have a dance. And Axe is the one who says, but the dance is here. All the kids are here, you can play music here, and there's room to dance. The dance is here. It's like an outsider perspective. It's a typical thing to happen in teen dramas. Like, but we don't need the thing as it was presented to us. The heart of it has come with us. But Axe, the outsider, the observer, he's the one who makes that. And then, of course, they do dance. Tobias comes by in a tux, and I have to wonder if he morphed the tux, because he definitely didn't buy it, and I don't think he stole it. But so Rachel and Tobias dance. Cassie and Jake axe. Cassie and Jake dance. Rachel and Tobias dance. And then Axe, for some reason, cozies up to Marco and asks him to dance, and Marco initially says no, but then he agrees to, and they actually show them dancing, and I think at the time they hadn't, the authors hadn't revealed that Marco is supposed to be bisexual, which he does read as bisexual or gay in the books if you're looking for it, or if you've read it twice and you're reading it and you're older and you can detect such things from experience. But in 1999 on TV, before the character was revealed to not be as straight as a Jake, showing those two dance on a kids show, on a show for teenagers, maybe just because it was the last episode, but that was probably pretty progressive on Nickelodeon's part. So kudos to Nickelodeon for that. And that's the last of my notes on the Animorphs television show. It was fun. I hope they release it on DVD someday. It'll be so much easier for reviewing, but glad I watched it a couple years ago just for fun, and this was more analyzing it, having read the books. I think that viewing was what got me wanting to start reading the books again, and that, of course, led to what that led to. And it was all good. So, but I'm done with Animorphs now. Not done with Animorphs, but done with the TV show. Not going to be any more videos recounting Animorphs episodes, because they would be reruns like the Animorphs episodes themselves. Next week, what I'm planning to do is on the video that I'll do for Tuesday will probably be like the Animorphs, looking back at Animorphs, but it'll hopefully be with an episode of The Secret World of Alex Mack, an episode of The Journey of Alan Strange, and an episode of The Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, which are the other three live-action teen adventure Nickelodeon shows that I remember really liking around that time. Then kind of similar vein to Animorphs. Space Cases, of course, is a separate thing, and I'll go into that in November, because in October I will be doing something with monster movies, and that's what the Friday video will be about. It'll be just probably very brief, definitely not 28 minutes and 42 seconds, but it'll be detailing what I'm planning to do with the monster movies over the course of the month of October, which is why I won't be watching and talking about Space Cases. So, this has been fun. I hope that it's also fun for somebody. I think there are people out there who find these shows as interesting as I do, or at least the books as interesting as I do, and can get some pleasure from these videos. So, onward to new things, but ram the blade ship.